Welcome, everyone. This is Betska, the Guru Coach, together with my wonderful blue-haired co-host, Raj Vashisht. I'm from Vancouver Island. Raj is from Delhi, India, and we run Mindful Leadership Beyond Borders. Our fabulous guest, I know you're going to find this really, really interesting because Amy Daughters is known as the letter writing lady. Wow. Okay, lost start, right? But let me tell you a little bit about her. Amy Weinland. Am I saying that correctly? Weinland or
Yeah,
Wainland?
Wineland,
Wineland.
that was right.
Wineland.
You got it right. Hmm.
Awesome. Is a spreader of hope. She's a keynote speaker, letter writer, satirist, sports journalist. Very interesting, diverse types of works there. And the award-winning author of two books, Dear Dana, That Time I Went Crazy, and wrote all 580 of my Facebook friends a handwritten letter. Now, isn't that intriguing? And the other book, You Cannot Mess This Up, a true story that never happened. Just the title alone wants you to order it, right? She is absolutely convinced that when human beings connect individually in a meaningful way, that nothing can separate them. So I'm very curious, Amy, about this main message around letter writing. What do you want our viewers and listeners to walk away with from this interview?
I want them to understand, Betska, and thank you for having me on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want them to understand that we all have this tool in our human toolkits, this fabulous ability to write a sincere handwritten note to another human being, and it just has this off the chain power to spread good in the world and enhance any relationship, whether it's professionally or personally, where there's two human beings trying to relate. I stumbled upon this whole letter writing thing, and I didn't realize until I'd done it over and over and over again that we all have this power to spread hope, to enhance connections with something as simple as sitting down with a pen and a note card and writing another person.
Uh-huh. Right on. So how did you become the letter writing lady? Like, what's the story here? I'm sure it's fascinating.
Right. Well, I was just minding my own business. I was already a writer. I wrote about sports and I wrote a book. And so literally I just got on social media one day and thought of a girl who I'd worked at a summer camp with. Boom. And I'm like, oh, there she is. So I friend her. She accepts my friend request. And since it didn't involve us doing anything, that was very easy. I looked through her life and she's got a bunch of kids. The youngest, the only boy, she has 5 kids, has cancer. I find out right away. And as a
Mm,
human being, I was like, that's terrible. So I start following
mm,
along. I don't
mm,
I don't comment, I don't like, but I follow along. The kid gets better. He the cancer comes back. They go back to this children's hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. I sit down at my desk that Monday morning and I think of them and it's like I get hit with a lightning bolt in the head. I'm going to start
mm.
sending them cards to where they're staying in
Oh,
Memphis, supportive cards.
uh-huh.
And I hadn't spoken to her in 30 years. I'd never met the kid,
Wow.
and I probably hadn't
Wow.
written anyone a letter in 25 years. So it's not like I came
Mm,
into this intentionally. It was totally
mm,
non-intentionally. And you can frame that wherever the inspiration came from, well, however you want to, but it was absolutely, I was going to do it. It was one of those, momentum things. So I start down that week, I started writing the two of them every week. I'd write them
mm.
like thinking of you. The letters became a little bit, the notes became a little bit longer. And it didn't really feel that awkward, which maybe it should have. And then about 12 weeks into that, and there are no good words for this, unthinkably, Parker loses his battle with cancer at only 15 years old. So just
Wow.
devastation. And I
Mm,
and I and it had nothing to do with me. I was like, what do I do next? So I sit down at my desk the next Monday morning. I'm like, little lightning bolt, just keep writing her. I couldn't just leave
uh-huh.
the transaction show. Now I have to figure out where she actually lives because this is Facebook. And so I didn't want to ask for her address. So then I found out her husband was an attorney. And so I just started sending the letters there. So really, this is me behaving irrationally at different levels. And so I start writing her there. And I realize every week I put her on my writing schedule for a weekly card, which became a letter. Every week I'm telling myself, she has lost her son. She doesn't even know who you are. And you're sending letters, but I couldn't help myself. I just couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the letters became longer and longer. 4 or 5 months went on. I go out to the mailbox on my birthday, not expecting anything. Instead of a birthday card, there's a 10-page handwritten letter from this woman. And she talks,
Wow.
yeah, and she talks about her grief and she tells me about her kids. And at the end of the letter, she says, I didn't even know I was going to say anything that I just felt like I should write you back, but I feel better from saying all of it. And so this kicks off 2 years of me and this stranger, basically, who I'd met when I was 18 years old. We spent 2 years writing each other letters. We didn't text, we didn't email, we didn't call each other. And it was amazing because since she wasn't sitting right in front of me, I felt like I could say whatever I wanted to because there was no expectation of a response. She did the same things. And the great thing about letters crossing in the mail, no one knows when anyone's reading anything. So you're off the hook as far as responding to everyone else's words. You think more about what you're going to say. And we end up trusting each other because it was so intimate. These tactile letters, we're holding each other's letters. And we would say stuff like, oh, I've never told anybody this, but I know I can trust you, woman who I've never talked to in 30 years. And then really one of the most beautiful things for me was I had no idea how she voted. I had no idea what her religious stand was. I had no idea what her stand on any issue was. All I knew is I cared about her, not just because her son died, but because she had opened up in this way with these words that after about 8 months, I was like, this has touched every part of my life. And I was like, so if this one girl on this list of hundreds of people can change my perspective, what other untapped goodness is in this list of people who I know to differing degrees? So I decided I'm going to write all of them a letter. Now, I don't think I actually thought I was going to finish that, but I got stationery. I put everybody's name in a box, and I got a journal and I started. But after about letter 25, I was like, wait a second, this may be the most important thing I ever do in my life. And so I spent 18,
Wow.
yeah, and I spent 18
Wow.
months and I wrote 600 handwritten letters. And it was so powerful that now I can't shut up about it.
How did you how did you find out all their addresses and things for 650 people?
And that's a number one question. And my first was, do I have it, or does my mom have it, or does my sister have it, or does my best friend
Oh,
have it? So that was step
okay.
one. Step two was if I couldn't get it that way, and I didn't have it myself, I had about 40% of the addresses that I needed. I would look, let's say you had a workplace that was public and I knew you worked there. Well, I could send the letter to your, like if you were a school teacher, that's easy. I could send
Okay,
it
yeah.
there.
Hmm.
But then the
Hmm.
last case resort and the most awkward was I would message you and say, can I have your address? And at the beginning, that was
Uh,
super awkward because no one knew about the letters. And I had to say,
mm,
I want to send you a letter. But lo and behold,
yeah.
I got 97% of the addresses I asked for. And,
Mm,
but I would always make myself write the letter before I had the address because
mm,
that completed that. Like I was going to write the letters no matter what, whether I was going to send it or not.
mm. So I'm curious about the woman whose child passed. Um, what was the impact of your writing letters to her, and then the impact of her writing letters back to you? I'm curious
Right.
about that.
Right. And and it's funny because I felt like I was inadequate, like I wasn't supporting anything. I was just sending these letters into the air. I had no idea they were what the impact they were having. And so I wrote them blindly, not knowing. And she had lost a child, so my assumption was it was just if it was anything, it was a distraction. That's all it was. But what it
Oh,
turned out to be after the fact, now I'm best friends with her, which is incredible. But I was throwing them a weekly lifeline and I did not know it. She said her and her
oh.
family would sit and wait for those letters to come because the letters got longer and longer. And I think I'm funny. So there would be some humorous twists and I would observe things about my own boring life. But I would always include some kind of, I made up crossword puzzle. Like I did all kinds of stuff just because I felt like I should do something. And I thought it was just silliness. And they were literally, the letters would come. I lived in Ohio at the time and they lived in Louisiana. They would come every Thursday or Friday and they would wait and she would get to read it first and the four daughters would read it next and then the husband would read it. I had no idea that it was
Wow.
a lifeline and they just couldn't believe that I was still writing them. And one of the girls asked their mom, like, do you think she's ever going to stop? And her mom was like, I hope she never stops writing us. and I could have never
Wow.
known that. And it's a testament to how sometimes we don't know the impact we're having on people, just by
Yeah.
doing whatever it is
Yeah.
we felt like we should do. But
Yeah.
but from my end, my letters to her became almost like a diary entry because I knew someone who cared about me was reading them. But since I did not have an in-person relationship with her, it was so
Mhm.
cathartic because I reordered my life just by telling someone else about it, by looking at it from the outside in. I swear I make better decisions when I write her because I still write her and she still writes me, not to the
Mhm.
frequency we did before, but it set my life into order because when you deliberately write something down with no time expectation. Like I could take however long I wanted to write the letters. I would learn stuff about myself and my life and my relationships. And I think I'm absolutely a more whole person for it.
Hmm. I was just thinking, what if people were sending me letters like that? It would just show me that they care, that someone cares about me.
Right.
You know?
And that's what I did not understand is I did
Mm.
not understand that writing someone a letter was going to create this, especially in 2025, this magical moment at a mailbox that I could never imagine that I wasn't going to see. Because when
Yeah.
you send someone a handwritten, and it doesn't have to be a letter, it can be a 3-line note. You can do it in 8 words and
Yeah.
still has the same
Yeah.
impact. But when
Yeah.
you stand at the mailbox, if you wrote me a letter, Betska, I'm going to stand there. Or, Raj, you're even better because you're in India. So I'm going to get this letter from somebody from Canada beyond the borders, literally.
Hmm.
And I'm going to
Hmm.
stand at my mailbox and I'm going to hold something in my hand that you held in your hand that was intended just for me. And I'm going to connect the dots on the amount of effort. You're going to sacrifice something for me. And you know what you're going to sacrifice? Your time. You're going to
That's
sit
it.
down
Yeah.
with a pen in your hand. You're going to write something,
Hmm.
hopefully that's sincere and meaningful or whatever. Then you've got to find an envelope. Wait, I've got to find this person's address. That's effort.
Hmm.
Wait, where are the stamps? How much is the cost of mail
Hmm.
something to the United States? Then you're going to have to go across town and find a place to drop that. And so when I hold that gift in my hand, I'll be like, this is how much I matter to another human being.
Yeah.
Boom. And
Exactly.
I didn't know people, it was going to mean the number one takeaway from those letters people told me was, I'm going to save your letter in a special place for the rest of
Mm.
my life. That's the power we have.
Wow. Okay, Raj. So I'm going to send you lots of letters now.
Oh, so kind of you.
Absolutely.
So beautiful.
So,
Yes.
Amy, it's like it really is a lost art, and
Hmm.
I'm I it is it. I want to ask the question: why has it become a lost art? I mean, it's one answer is pretty obvious that it's technology, and it's so much easier to hop on the computer and type out for some people who can type, type out some text and so on. But there has to be another reason underneath all of this. Why is this? Why is letter writing a lost art?
Well, I think we became rightfully infatuated first with email, then with texting, and
Yeah.
it squeezed it out of our culture because it requires a different level of effort. And now, since we don't practice this, since it diminished in that time period, we don't even think about it because
Yeah.
I think for me, it was hiding in plain sight. It was there all
Yeah.
the time. And
Hmm.
now the impact of it, it still had impact back in the days when we wrote each other's letters. But now, in the
Hmm.
age of AI, it's emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
It's another level. It's the same reason film photography becomes, those old school things become more impactful because we don't see them anymore. But I think it just simply diminished. We don't go to the stationery store anymore because there's not a stationery
Mhm.
store. It
Yeah.
was a part of the reg. Well, that's what we did. But then when it
Mhm.
diminished, when we had this tool, and there's something very necessary about instantaneous communication in the world we live in, but it makes us feel isolated because we know it's easy. It doesn't, and relationship,
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
as human beings, we need to feel like we're in relationship with someone who's willing to sacrifice something for us. And that's what a letter
Yeah.
does. That's what
Yeah.
it makes
It
you
does.
feel. And I think the number one thing that it makes people feel is valued. And
Yes. Cared
I
for.
started
Yeah.
I started speaking about this, and I thought what I had on my hands was this inspirational personal story. But then the first thing that happened was I had this group of real estate agents ask me to speak. And I kept thinking, why do you want me to come with my little letter writing story? I'm the little letter writing lady, you know? And then I realized they were like, no, we can use this in our business, you know, client facing, it's sincere marketing. And then I realized any place, leadership, organizations, any place where human beings need to relate to each other, this is an off the charts tool that can be used. It's applicable anywhere.
Absolutely. Well, Amy and Raj, we're going to take a short pause, but folks, we're going to come back. We want to explore this absolutely amazing phenomenon of letter writing. We'll be right back.